The great chamber of Harmony Prime could hold 10,000 beings at once. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from 847 species had gathered in this orbital station that floated between three suns. Light poured through crystal walls and made rainbow patterns on the floor. The air smelled of 100 different atmospheres, carefully mixed so everyone could breathe. Ambassador Yelena Vasquez stood alone at the defendant's podium. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from decades of diplomatic service. Her blue formal suit felt heavy on her shoulders. Around her, arranged in rising circles that reached toward the ceiling, sat the entire Galactic Union. They had come to judge humanity. High Arbiter Keth Morin rose from his elevated seat. He was a Velith, one of the three founding species of the Union. His body was tall and thin, covered in silver scales that caught the light. His eyes were large and completely black, and when he spoke, his voice carried perfectly through the chamber. "This assembly is now in session," he announced. "We gather to consider the motion of exile against the species known as humans, originating from the planet called Earth." Yelena kept her face calm. She had known this day was coming. For months, her sources had warned her about secret meetings and private deals. The powerful species of the galaxy had decided that humanity had become a problem. Today, they would make it official. The prosecutor was a Kesari named Vethnol. Her people looked somewhat like large insects, with hard shells and multiple arms. She had been chosen for her reputation as ruthless and thorough. She stepped forward and began to read the charges. "The species known as humans have been members of this union for 312 standard years," Vethnol said. "In that time, they have committed numerous violations of union law and custom." She listed them one by one. Unauthorized terraforming of 17 worlds, cultural contamination of 34 primitive species, economic disruption through what she called predatory innovation, failure to respect the traditional hierarchies of elder species, spreading dangerous philosophies of individualism and change. Yelena listened without expression. She knew these charges were mostly false or exaggerated. The terraforming had been done on dead worlds that no one wanted. The cultural contamination was simply humans sharing music and stories with anyone who asked. The economic disruption meant that human companies had offered better products at lower prices than the ancient monopolies controlled by the elder species. But the last charge was the real one. Humans asked too many questions. Humans changed too quickly. Humans made the old powers nervous. "The humans have disrupted 10,000 years of stability," Vethnol continued. "They refuse to accept their place in the natural order. They challenge traditions that have served this galaxy well since before their species learned to make fire." She went on for 2 hours. Yelena stood and listened. She was not allowed to speak until the prosecution finished. That was union law. Finally, Vethnol concluded, "The triumvirate therefore moves that humanity be permanently exiled from all union space. All humans must return to their home system and designated colony worlds within 1 standard year. After that time, any human vessel found in union space will be destroyed. Human technology, literature, music, and cultural products will be banned throughout the Union. This is the only way to preserve the peace and stability our ancestors built." The chamber buzzed with conversation. Yelena waited. High Arbiter Keth Morin raised a hand for silence. "The defendant may now speak." Yelena stepped forward. She had prepared a speech. She had arguments and evidence and appeals to reason. But looking out at the assembly, she realized none of it would matter. The decision had already been made. This trial was just theater, so she said only this: "We came to the stars hoping to find friends. We found something else. We learned that the galaxy has rules, and those rules exist to keep the powerful in power. We followed your rules. We tried to be good members of your union, but nothing we did was ever enough. We were too successful, too innovative, too different." She paused and looked around the chamber. "You have already decided to exile us. I can see it in your eyes. So I will not waste time begging. I will simply ask you to remember this moment. Remember what you chose today. Because choices have consequences." She stepped back. The vote began. Species after species rose to declare their position. Yelena watched faces she had once considered friends. The Thesari, who humanity had traded with for centuries, voted for exile. The Marinthians, who had signed an eternal friendship treaty just 40 years ago, voted for exile. The Kesari, whose first interstellar ships had been built with human help, voted for exile. Only a handful stood with humanity. 16 species out of 847. Small species, young species, those with nothing to lose. When the count was finished, High Arbiter Keth Moran announced the result. The motion passes with 831 votes in favor, 16 against. Humanity is hereby exiled from the Galactic Union, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in cheering. Delegates congratulated each other. They had solved the human problem. The galaxy was safe. Yellen waited for the noise to die down. Then she did something no one expected. She smiled. "The Galactic Union has spoken," she said, her voice cutting through the celebration. "Earth accepts this verdict without appeal." The cheering stopped. Confusion replaced triumph on alien faces. "We thank this assembly for clarifying our position," Yellen continued. "For 3 centuries, we tried to work within your system. We followed your laws. We respected your customs. We limited ourselves because we believed cooperation was possible." She walked toward the exit, still smiling. "But you have made clear that no matter what we do, we will never be accepted here. So we will stop trying. You had rules. We followed them. Now we do not have to." The doors opened before her. "Wait," High Arbiter Keth Moran called. "What do you mean by that?" Yellen paused at the threshold. "Nothing you need to worry about. You have 831 species. We are just one. What could we possibly do?" She walked out. The doors closed behind her. In the chamber, the celebration had stopped completely. Delegates looked at each other with uncertain expressions. Something about the human ambassador's smile bothered them. She had not seemed defeated. She had seemed relieved. But surely that meant nothing. Humans were contained now. Their few colony worlds could not survive without Union trade. In a generation or two, they would come crawling back, begging to be readmitted. Everything would return to normal. That was what the Triumvirate believed. On Earth, the message arrived at 3 a.m. Geneva time. President Amara Okonkwo was already awake. She had been waiting for this news for weeks. Her cabinet and military chief sat around a long table in the bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. This facility had been built centuries ago, during Earth's final Great War. Now it served a different purpose. "They actually did it," said General Marcus Webb, reading the transmission from Harmony Prime. 831 to 16. The entire galaxy voted to erase us. "Not erase," President Okonkwo corrected him. "Contain. They think if they lock us in our little corner of space, we will wither and die." She almost smiled. "They do not know us very well." Admiral Yuki Sato leaned forward. "What are your orders, Madam President?" Okonkwo stood and walked to the wall display showing humanity's territories. 17 colony worlds, 100 billion people. 3 centuries of expansion and growth, now supposedly ended. She picked up a folder from the table. It was marked with a single word in red letters. Prometheus. "For 50 years, we have prepared for this possibility," she said. "Not because we wanted to fight the Union, because we knew they would never truly accept us. The Prometheus Initiative was our insurance policy. Today, we cash it in." She opened the folder and spread its contents across the table. Star charts, technology blueprints, military plans, diplomatic strategies. "We do what humans have always done," President Okonkwo said. "We adapt, we survive, and when the universe tries to put us in a box, we build our own universe." General Webb picked up one of the documents. His eyes widened as he read it. "Madam President, some of this is, the Union specifically prohibited research in these areas. The Union just told us their rules no longer apply to us," Okonkwo replied. "For the first time in 300 years, humanity is free. Free to become whatever we need to become." She looked around the table at her most trusted advisors. "The galaxy voted to exile Earth. Now we show them why that was a mistake. Not through revenge. Not through war. Through something far more dangerous." "What?" Admiral Sato asked. President Okonkwo smiled, the same smile Ambassador Vasquez had worn in the Union chamber. "We show them what humanity looks like without chains." Across human space, the message spread. The Union had rejected them. The galaxy had turned its back. For a moment, there was shock and grief. Then something else took over. something that had carried humanity through ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly ended their species. They got to work. In orbital stations and underground labs, scientists began research that had been forbidden. In shipyards on a dozen worlds, engineers started building things the Union had never imagined. In military academies, strategists planned for a future without limits. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 3 years had passed since the vote. The Galactic Union celebrated what they called the purification. Speeches were given about how the removal of humanity had restored balance to civilization. Trade flowed smoothly again through the ancient monopolies. Young species learned to follow the old ways without human voices whispering about alternatives. The triumvirate congratulated themselves on solving the human problem peacefully. Inside the quarantine zone, things were different. Captain Dmitry Volkov stood on the bridge of the research vessel Prometheus 7. Through the viewport, he watched a star die. Not a natural death. His ship had killed it. "Wormhole stable," reported his chief scientist, Dr. Sarah Chen. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook with excitement. "We have created a traversable passage between 2 points in space. Distance, 47 light-years. Transit time, instantaneous." Dmitry let out a breath he had been holding for months. "Show me." The display lit up with data. Where there had been a star, there was now a hole in space itself. Through that hole, instruments detected the light of a different star system, one that would take decades to reach using Union jump gates. They had done the impossible. For 3,000 years, the Union had used jump gates. These massive structures created stable passages between fixed points, but building them took centuries and cost more than most species could ever afford. The triumvirate controlled the gate network, which meant they controlled all travel and trade. Humanity had just made the gates worthless. "How?" Dmitry asked. "The Union said this was impossible. Their scientists proved it could not be done." Dr. Chen smiled. "Their scientists followed rules. They limited their research to approved directions. We had no such limits." She pulled up equations on the screen. The Union forbade research into dimensional physics. They said it was too dangerous. What they meant was, it was too powerful. If anyone could open portals anywhere, the triumvirate would lose control. And now we can open portals anywhere. Anywhere we want. Anytime we want. No gates required. Dmitry thought about what this meant. Humanity had been exiled. Their ships were supposed to be trapped in their little corner of space. But with this technology, the whole galaxy was open to them. They could appear anywhere, instantly, without using Union infrastructure. The exile was over before it had really begun. He sent the message to Earth. Within hours, the Council of 17 convened. Leaders from all human worlds joined through secure communication. President Okonkwo sat in her office in Geneva, watching faces appear on screens around her. "We have confirmed the breakthrough," she announced. "Prometheus 7 successfully created a stable wormhole. The technology works." The reactions varied. Some leaders cheered. Others looked worried. Governor James Rodriguez of the Mars colonies spoke first. "This changes everything. We can strike back at the Union. They exiled us. They humiliated us. With this technology, we could destroy their precious gate network in a single day." Admiral Sato shook her head. "We could destroy much more than that. Our weapons programs have advanced beyond anything the Union possesses. In 3 years of unrestricted research, we have developed weapons they cannot counter. If we wanted revenge, we could take it. Then why do we not?" demanded Senator Priya Sharma from the Europa station. "They tried to kill our civilization. They deserve to suffer." President Okonkwo raised her hand for silence. "I understand the desire for revenge. Believe me, but consider what revenge would cost us." She stood and walked to the wall display. "If we attack the Union, we prove everything they said about us. We become the dangerous species they claimed we were. Every terrible thing they said would be justified, and we would have to kill billions of innocent beings to punish the crimes of their leaders. So we do nothing?" Governor Rodriguez asked. "No. We do something far more effective than revenge." Okonkwo smiled. "We win." She outlined her plan. Humanity would not hide in exile, but they would not attack either. Instead, they would build their own network, their own economy, their own alliances. They would approach species who had been exploited by the Union for centuries and offer something better. The Union rules through control, Okonkwo explained. They control travel. They control trade. They control information. We will offer the opposite. Freedom, fair dealing, partnership instead of domination. Will anyone trust us? Asked Prime Minister Kenji Tanaka of the Japan colony. The Union spent years telling everyone we were dangerous. Some will not trust us, but some will be desperate enough to try. The Union has made many enemies. We will start with them. The vote was close, but the Council agreed. Humanity would pursue the fourth path. Not revenge, not isolation, not surrender. Something new. 6 months later, a small human ship appeared in the home system of the Thesari. The Thesari were a minor species, traders by nature and necessity. They had abstained from the Exile vote, one of the few species brave enough not to condemn humanity. When human ships appeared in their sky, they were terrified. Trade Minister Kelvin Braid received the human delegation in his office. He was a small being, covered in brown fur, with clever eyes and quick hands. His people had survived for millennia by being useful to larger powers without threatening them. You should not be here, he said. If the Union learns we are meeting with humans, they will punish us severely. The human representative was a young woman named Lieutenant Maya Santos. She smiled warmly. We will not be here long, Minister, and we are not asking for shelter or protection. We are offering a trade agreement. Kelvin Braid blinked his large eyes. A trade agreement? With what? The Union has blockaded your space. You have nothing to trade. Santos placed a small device on his desk. It projected a holographic catalog of products. 3 years of unrestricted innovation produces many things, Minister. We have technologies the Union does not possess. Energy systems, medical advances, manufacturing methods. We can deliver them to you instantly, through means the Union cannot detect or prevent. Instantly? Through the blockade? The blockade is meaningless to us now. Santos leaned forward. We are not asking you to rebel against the Union, Minister. We are not asking you to choose sides. We are simply offering you better deals than the triumvirate provides. What you do with that opportunity is your choice. Kelvin Braid studied the catalog. The prices were astonishing. Products that the Union charged enormous fees for, humanity was offering at a fraction of the cost. There were no tribute demands, no loyalty requirements, no threats. Why? He asked. Why would you offer such generous terms? Because we want partners, not subjects, Santos replied. The Union treats minor species like resources to be exploited. We want to treat you like equals. Build trust, build relationships, build something that lasts longer than any empire. It was such a strange concept that Kelvin Braid did not know how to respond. His people had survived by being used. They had never been offered genuine partnership. I will consider your proposal, he said carefully. Santos stood and bowed. That is all we ask. We will return in 1 month for your answer. She walked out. Before he could ask how she would leave without being detected, her ship vanished from his sky. No jump gate flash, no engine trail. It simply ceased to exist in his system and began existing somewhere else. Kelvin Braid sat alone in his office for a long time. Then he began making calls to other minor species who had also abstained from the vote, species who were tired of being exploited. Word spread quietly through the galaxy. The humans were back. They had technology no one understood, and they were offering deals that seemed too good to be true. Within a year, 47 species had made secret agreements with the human cooperative. Within 2 years, that number had doubled. Human goods appeared in markets thousands of light years from Earth. Human music played in establishments on worlds that had never met a human. Human ideas spread through populations hungry for something new. The triumvirate noticed eventually. High Arbiter Keth Moran called an emergency meeting of the Union leadership. Reports covered his desk. Human ships appearing and vanishing without using gates. Human products flooding markets despite the blockade. Human representatives meeting with species throughout the galaxy. How is this possible? He demanded. We locked their gates. We surrounded their space with patrol fleets. How are they getting through? His advisors had no answers. Intelligence Chief Veth Soran presented the latest analysis. They are not using gates. They are not using any technology we understand. Our scientists say what they are doing should be impossible. Impossible things do not happen. Keth Morin snapped. They do when someone breaks the rules. Veth Soren hesitated. High Arbiter, the humans had no restrictions on their research for 3 years. We banned investigation into dimensional physics, quantum entanglement, artificial consciousness. They banned nothing. They had the best scientists in the galaxy working without limits. Keth Morin felt a chill run through his silver scales. What are you saying? I am saying the Exile may have been a mistake. We thought we were containing them. Instead, we freed them. Freed them from every law that kept them from surpassing us. The chamber fell silent. How do we contain them now? Asked Arbiter Keth Velas, representative of the Morinthian species. Veth Soren shook his head. I do not know if we can, Arbiter. They no longer need our roads, our gates, our infrastructure. They have built their own. And every day they grow stronger while we argue about what to do. High Arbiter Keth Morin stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars gleamed with the light of 10,000 civilizations. His civilization. His order. His rules. Then we must act before they become unstoppable, he said quietly. If they will not stay in their cage, we will destroy the cage with them inside it. He turned to face his advisors. Prepare the war fleet. If humanity will not accept exile, they will accept extinction. The orders went out that night. Across the galaxy, human intelligence networks picked up the transmission within hours. The Union was done pretending. They were coming to finish what the exile had started. President Okonkwo received the report at midnight Geneva time. She read it twice, then summoned her council once more. They are sending their war fleet, she told the assembled leaders. The largest military force assembled in 3,000 years. They intend to destroy us completely. Then we destroy them first. General Webb said. No. Okonkwo shook her head. We do something smarter. We let them come. We let them see what we have become. And we give them a choice they never gave us. Admiral Sato frowned. What choice? The choice to change. Okonkwo looked around the room. We are not going to become the monsters they accused us of being. We are going to prove them wrong. And in doing so, we are going to break their empire without firing a shot. The council exchanged uncertain glances. But they had trusted her this far. The war fleet launched. The galaxy held its breath. And humanity prepared to teach the universe a lesson it would never forget. 5 years had passed since the exile. The galaxy had split in two, though no one had declared it officially. On one side stood the Galactic Union, ancient and proud, clinging to traditions that had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. On the other side stood something new, something that called itself the Human Cooperative. Trade Minister Kelvin Braid walked through the streets of New Geneva, the capital of humanity's largest colony world. 3 years ago, he had been the first alien to sign a trade agreement with the exiled humans. Now he served as the cooperative's chief economic advisor. His life had changed in ways he still struggled to understand. Around him, the city buzzed with activity. Humans hurried past on their way to work, but they were not alone. Kelvin Braid saw Thessari merchants haggling with human shopkeepers. He saw Kasari engineers consulting on a construction project. He saw Velith scholars sitting in cafes, debating philosophy with human students. It was impossible. It should not exist. And yet here it was. A young human woman fell into step beside him. Lieutenant Maya Santos, now promoted to commander and serving as his assistant. She had been the one to first contact his people, to offer them a way out of Union exploitation. The morning reports are ready, she said. 12 new species applied for cooperative membership this week. That brings our total to 147. Kelvin Braid made a sound that translated roughly as amazement. When I joined, we were 47. In 2 years, you have tripled that number. We offer something the Union cannot match, Santos said. Choice. They entered the Cooperative Council building, a structure of glass and living plants that rose toward the sky. Inside, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss policy, not as subjects receiving orders, but as partners making decisions together. Kelvin Braid still found it strange. In the Union, the triumvirate decided everything. Minor species like his were told what to do and expected to obey. Questions were discouraged. Innovation was controlled. Everyone knew their place. The cooperative worked differently. Any member could propose ideas. Decisions required broad agreement, not just approval from the powerful. There were arguments, debates, and sometimes failures. It was messy and slow. It was also, Kelvin Braid had come to realize, more stable than anything he had known before. "You seem thoughtful today," Santos observed. "I am trying to understand why this works," he admitted. "The Union spent millennia building their system. They had the best minds of 1,000 species designing it, yet you built something better in 5 years." Santos smiled. "We did not build something new. We remembered something old. Before humans reached the stars, we tried many ways of organizing ourselves. Empires and kingdoms and dictatorships. They all fell eventually. The systems that lasted were the ones where people chose to participate, not where they were forced. But how do you maintain order? How do you prevent chaos? We don't prevent it completely. Some chaos is healthy. It means people are free to try new things, to challenge old ideas." Santos gestured at the busy street outside. "Look at this city. It is not perfectly ordered. But everyone here chose to be here. They stay because they want to, not because they have no other option." Kelvin Braid considered this. His people had survived by being useful to larger powers. They had learned to anticipate the desires of their rulers, to make themselves valuable enough to protect. The idea of existing without a ruler to please was strange and a little frightening. But also, he admitted to himself, exciting. They entered the council chamber. Representatives from 60 species sat in a circle. No one elevated above the others. Human President Okonkwo was present, but she sat at the same level as a Thesari merchant and a Marinthian scholar. When she spoke, she made suggestions, not commands. Today's agenda focused on the Union war fleet. Intelligence reports indicated it would arrive at human space within 3 months. The largest military force assembled in 3,000 years was coming to destroy them. Some representatives panicked. Their people had fled the Union to escape exactly this kind of violence. Now it was following them. "We should evacuate," urged Representative Kelvas of the Naturi. "Scatter our population so the Union cannot destroy us in one strike." "Evacuation means abandoning everything we have built," countered Representative Amara Singh, speaking for the Mars colonies. "Our shipyards, our research facilities, our homes. We cannot take them with us. Better to lose things than lives." The debate continued. Kelvin Braid listened carefully, watching how humans handled disagreement. In the Union, such open argument would be unthinkable. The triumvirate decided, and everyone obeyed. President Okonkwo raised her hand. The chamber gradually quieted. "I understand the fear," she said. "The Union fleet could destroy any single world we possess. Their numbers are overwhelming. If we fight them directly, we will suffer terrible losses even if we win." "Then what do you suggest?" asked Representative Kelvas. Okonkwo smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when accepting the Exile verdict 5 years ago. "I suggest we do not fight them directly. I suggest we fight them with something more powerful than weapons." She activated a display showing the Union fleet's projected path. "They expect resistance. They have planned for battle. But what if we give them something else? What if we show them what they are really fighting against?" "I do not understand," admitted Kelvin Braid. "The Union soldiers are not evil," Okonkwo explained. "Most of them joined their military because they had no other options. They come from minor species like yours, Minister, species that were never given real opportunities in the Union system. They follow orders because that is all they know." She changed the display to show demographics of the Union fleet. Most crew came from conquered or client species. Only the command structure was dominated by the triumvirate races. "We will not attack their fleet," Okonkwo continued. "We will invite them to visit our worlds. Let them see with their own eyes what we have built. Let them meet aliens like themselves who chose a different path. Let them ask questions their officers cannot answer." Representative Singh frowned. "You want to let the invasion force walk through our cities?" "Yes, unarmed, as guests." Okonkwo's voice was calm. "The Union tells them we are monsters, dangerous, unstable, threatening. If they see the truth, they will begin to doubt. And once soldiers start doubting, armies start to crumble." The chamber erupted in argument. Some called the plan insane. Others said it was surrender by another name. A few suggested it might actually work. Kelvin Braid found himself rising to speak. The chamber fell silent. Minor species rarely addressed the full council. "May I offer a perspective?" he asked. Okonkwo nodded. "Please. I spent my entire life in the Union," Kelvin Braid said. "My people survived by being useful and invisible. We never questioned. We never hoped for anything better. We accepted our place because we believed there was nothing else." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When Commander Santos first contacted us, I was terrified. Everything I had been taught said humans were dangerous, but she did not threaten or demand. She offered, and when I came here, I found something I had never imagined possible. A place where my people are valued, where our ideas matter, where we are partners instead of servants." He looked around the chamber at the gathered representatives. "If the Union soldiers see this, some of them will not be able to unsee it. They will wonder why their empire cannot offer what you offer. They will question orders that never made sense. Not all of them, but enough." The debate continued for hours. In the end, the council voted to accept Okonkwo's plan. It was not unanimous. Some members thought it was too risky, but the majority agreed that demonstrating strength was less important than demonstrating truth. Across human space, preparations began. Not for war, but for welcome. Cities prepared to receive guests. Citizens were briefed on how to interact with Union soldiers. Schools practiced explaining the cooperative's principles in simple terms. Meanwhile, the Union fleet drew closer. Admiral Keth Soren stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Righteous Fury. He commanded 3,000 warships crewed by soldiers from 100 species. His orders were clear: destroy human military capability, occupy their worlds, and restore them to Union control. He had served the Triumvirate for 40 years. He had fought in campaigns against rebellious species, put down uprisings, enforced the order that kept the galaxy stable. He had never questioned his purpose, but lately, questions had begun to creep into his mind. The humans had not attacked anyone. They had not threatened Union worlds. They had simply built something different and invited others to join. Was that really a crime worthy of destruction? He pushed the thought away. Orders were orders. The Triumvirate knew best. His communications officer approached. "Admiral, we have received a transmission from the human colony at Kepler 442. Our primary target. What does it say?" The officer hesitated. "It is an invitation, sir. They are inviting our officers to visit the planet's surface. They say we can see for ourselves what they have built. No weapons, no tricks, just a tour." Keth Soren stared at him. "A tour?" "Yes, sir. They say they will not fire unless we fire first. They want us to understand what we are being asked to destroy." It was the strangest military communication Keth Soren had ever received. He should ignore it. He should follow his orders and begin the attack. But curiosity gnawed at him. What were the humans really like? The Union described them as dangerous and unstable, yet they had built something that made species willingly abandon the only civilization the galaxy had ever known. "Tell them," Keth Soren said slowly, "that I will accept their invitation. Myself and 50 officers. If this is a trap, the fleet has orders to proceed without me." The officer looked shocked. "Sir, is that wise?" "Probably not." Keth Soren turned back to the viewport, watching the stars. "But I have been a soldier for 40 years. I have killed and conquered in the name of order. If I am going to destroy these people, I want to understand why they needed to die." He did not add the thought that followed. "And whether they really do." The message was sent. The fleet continued its approach, and across the galaxy, beings of every species waited to see what would happen when the Union's greatest admiral walked among the monsters he had come to destroy. The Union armada arrived at Kepler 442 with enough firepower to burn the planet to ash. 3,000 warships hung in the darkness of space, their weapons charged and ready. The largest fleet assembled in 3,000 years faced a single human colony world. From the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Admiral Keth Soren studied the planet below. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting across the surface. Lights glittered on the night side where cities had grown. Orbital stations circled peacefully, showing no signs of weapons deployment. "The planet's defense grid is active but minimal," reported his tactical officer. "I count only 12 military vessels in orbit. They are not moving to engage. They said they would not fire first." Keth Soren murmured. It seems they meant it. A small ship detached from the orbital station and approached the flagship. His officers tensed, but the vessel made no hostile movements. It simply positioned itself between the fleet and the planet and opened a communication channel. A human woman appeared on screen. She wore a simple uniform with no visible rank insignia. Her face was calm, almost welcoming. "Admiral Keth Soren," she said. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez. My mother was the ambassador you voted to exile 5 years ago. On behalf of Kepler 442 and the Human Cooperative, welcome to our world." Keth Soren had expected defiance or fear. The warmth in her voice surprised him. "You understand we have come to destroy you." "I understand you have orders to destroy us," Vasquez corrected gently. "Whether you choose to follow those orders is still up to you. That is why we invited you to visit. Come down to the surface. See what we have built. Bring your officers. No weapons will be fired while you are our guests. And if I decide this is a trap, then your fleet destroys our colony, and my mother's work dies with me." Vasquez shrugged. "We are not asking you to trust us, Admiral. We are asking you to be curious. For 40 years, the Union has told you what humans are. Today, you can find out for yourself." Keth Soren studied her face. She did not seem afraid. She did not seem to be hiding anything. She simply waited. "Prepare my shuttle," he told his officers. "I will take 50 observers to the surface. If we do not return within 6 hours, or if you detect any hostile action, proceed with the attack." His officers protested. It was too dangerous. He was too valuable. The humans could not be trusted, but Keth Soren had made his decision. He had destroyed enough worlds in his career. If this one had to die, he wanted to know what he was killing. The shuttle descended through atmosphere and landed in a field outside the capital city. Keth Soren stepped onto alien soil for the first time in years. The air smelled clean, fresh in a way that surprised him. His officers fanned out around him, unarmed but wary. Captain Vasquez met them with a small group of humans, also unarmed, also calm. "Where would you like to start?" she asked. "We have schools, hospitals, factories, farms, or we could simply walk through the city. Whatever you prefer." Keth Soren chose the city. They walked through streets filled with ordinary life. Humans went about their business, shopping and working and talking, but they were not alone. Keth Soren saw aliens everywhere. Thesari merchants, Kasari engineers, Morinthian scholars, dozens of species that should have been enemies walking freely among humans. "These are citizens of the cooperative?" he asked. "Partners?" Vasquez corrected. "We do not use the word citizen. It implies belonging to something larger than yourself. Here, the community belongs to its members, not the other way around." They passed a park where children played, human children and alien children together, chasing each other and laughing. An elderly Velith sat on a bench watching them, smiling at their games. Keth Soren stopped. The Velith were one of the triumvirate races, the oldest, most respected species in the Union. What was one doing here? He approached the old alien. "Forgive my intrusion. I am Admiral Keth Soren of the Union Fleet. May I ask why you are here?" The Velith looked up at him with ancient, knowing eyes. "You may. I am here because I grew tired of ruling. For 8,000 years, my people told everyone else what to do. We believed we knew best. We believed order required control." He gestured at the playing children. "The humans showed me something different. They showed me that order can grow from freedom, that stability can come from choice rather than force. I am old, Admiral. I wanted to spend my last years in a place where people choose to be together rather than being kept together." Keth Soren did not know what to say. He moved on. They visited a hospital where human and alien doctors worked side by side. They visited a school where children learned the histories of 100 species, not just the Union-approved version. They visited a market where goods from across the galaxy were traded freely, without tribute or tariffs. Everywhere Keth Soren looked, he saw the same thing. Species working together not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. Aliens who had fled the Union, living peaceful, productive lives. Former enemies becoming friends. As evening fell, Vasquez led him to a hillside overlooking the capital. The city lights sparkled below. In the sky above, the Union fleet hung like distant stars. Your ships, Vasquez said quietly, could destroy everything you have seen today. Our defense grid might stop some of your weapons, but not all. If you follow your orders, this city will burn. I know. She handed him a tablet. I want to show you something. The display activated, showing tactical data. The moment the Union fleet had arrived, a response had triggered automatically across human space. For a radius of 40 light-years, every human asset, military stations, civilian ships, automated defense platforms had coordinated into a single defensive network. Response time, 0.003 seconds, Vasquez said. If your fleet had fired a single shot upon arrival, before you could have registered the flash, your entire armada would have ceased to exist. Keth Soren stared at the numbers. It was impossible. No technology could react that fast. No civilization could coordinate across such distances. We spent 5 years without restrictions, Vasquez continued. We developed technologies the Union cannot imagine. We built weapons that make your fleet look like children's toys. We could have destroyed you the moment you arrived. We chose not to. Why? Because killing your soldiers would prove everything the Union says about us. Because vengeance is satisfying but pointless. Because we would rather have you as friends than corpses. She looked at him directly. Admiral, you have seen our cities. You have met our people. Do we seem like monsters to you? Keth Soren thought about everything he had witnessed. The children playing, the elderly Velith philosopher, the doctors and teachers and merchants and farmers, all living together by choice. No, he admitted. You do not. Then I ask you a question. If we are not monsters, why were you ordered to destroy us? What threat do we pose to a union of 800 species? He knew the answer. He had always known it, buried beneath decades of following orders. Humanity threatened the Union not with weapons but with ideas. They showed that another way was possible. They proved the triumvirate was not necessary. We threatened their power, he said slowly. Not their people. Their control. Yes, Vasquez nodded. The triumvirate could not allow us to exist because our existence proves they are not inevitable. If species can thrive without being ruled, why would anyone accept being ruled? Keth Soren was silent for a long time. Below, the city continued its peaceful evening routine. Above, his fleet waited for his decision. I have followed orders for 40 years, he finally said. I have destroyed worlds and ended civilizations because I was told it was necessary. I never questioned. Questions were discouraged. Questions are not discouraged here. He looked at her. If I refuse to attack, I will be declared a traitor. My career, my reputation, everything I have built will be destroyed. Probably. My officers may not follow me. Some will proceed with the attack, regardless of what I say. Also probably, you are not making a strong argument for your position. Vasquez smiled. I am not trying to. The decision is yours, Admiral. I cannot make it for you. All I can do is show you the truth and let you choose what to do with it. She stood and offered her hand. Whatever you decide, you are welcome in our city tonight. We have a spare room, if you want it. Keth Soren looked at her hand. In the Union, physical contact between species was rare and formal. This simple offer of hospitality meant more than she probably realized. He took her hand, back in orbit. His shuttle returned to the flagship. His officers gathered, waiting for orders. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others had seen the same things he had and were no longer sure. Keth Soren stood on his bridge and faced his crew. I have served the triumvirate for 40 years, he announced. I have followed every order without question. Today, I am going to question. He described what he had seen on the surface. The peaceful city, the cooperating species, the technology that could have destroyed them, but was held in check. The choice humanity had made not to become what the Union accused them of being. We were sent here to destroy monsters, he concluded. I found people. Different from us, yes. Challenging to our beliefs, certainly. But not monsters, not enemies. Just people who wanted to live differently than we do. The triumvirate gave us orders, said Commander Vethkos, his second in command. Orders are not suggestions. Orders should make sense, Keth Soren replied. When I was young, I was taught that we served order and stability, that we protected the weak from chaos. But what weak are we protecting here? The humans have not attacked anyone. The species that joined them did so willingly. The only chaos is the chaos we bring. He looked at his officers, one by one. I will not destroy that city. I will not kill those children. If you believe I am wrong, you are free to relieve me of command. But I will not do it. Silence fell over the bridge. Officers exchanged glances. Then, slowly, Commander Vethkos stepped forward. I saw it too. The Thessary doctor treating human patients. The Kessary children playing with human friends. I do not understand how it works, but I saw it working. Another officer spoke up. My grandmother was Marinthian. She always said the Union was better than any alternative. But she never saw what I saw today. One by one, officers declared their positions. Some still wanted to follow orders. But more had been changed by what they witnessed. The unity of command began to fracture. Word spread through the fleet. What the admiral had seen. What he had decided. On ship after ship, crews debated and argued. Officers who had spent their careers following orders began asking questions for the first time. The triumvirate's orders arrived. Admiral Keth Soren was relieved of duty. The attack would proceed under new command. But when the new commander tried to give the order, half the fleet refused to respond. Ships that had served the Union for centuries powered down their weapons. Crews transmitted messages of solidarity with their former admiral. Some vessels requested permission to enter human space peacefully. The great armada that had come to destroy humanity destroyed itself instead. Not through battle, but through choice. Keth Soren watched it happen from the flagship bridge, no longer in command but still present. His career was over. His reputation was ruined. Everything he had spent 40 years building had crumbled in a single day. And yet, looking at the city lights below, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Hope. Captain Vasquez's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, the situation up there looks complicated. If you need somewhere to go, my offer still stands. We have that spare room ready. Keth Soren actually laughed. A sound he barely recognized coming from his own throat. I may take you up on that, Captain. It seems I am unemployed. Below, the human city continued its peaceful night. Above, a fleet fell apart as soldiers chose conscience over orders. And across the galaxy, beings who had never dared question their rulers began to wonder what else they had been told was impossible. The battle for humanity's survival had been won without firing a shot. The real war, the war for the galaxy's soul, was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the battle that never happened. The Galactic Union still existed on paper. Its capital still functioned. Its administrators still filed reports. But everyone knew the truth. The Union was a shell of what it had been. Over 300 species had formally withdrawn membership. Another 300 had simply stopped participating while maintaining their names on the rolls. Only the core loyalists remained committed. The triumvirate and their closest allies clung to power that slipped through their fingers like water. High Arbiter Keth Morin stood before the Union Assembly, facing judgment from his own people. The chamber that once held 800 species now echoed with empty seats. Perhaps 200 representatives remained, and many of them had come to watch him fall. The prosecutor was a young Veleth named Keth Celis, from a faction that had grown tired of ancient mistakes. She presented the evidence systematically. Documents showing that the Exile vote had been rigged, communications proving that human crimes were manufactured or exaggerated, records of bribes paid to secure votes against humanity. The Exile was never about human violations, Keth Celis concluded. It was about eliminating competition. The triumvirate feared losing control, so they tried to destroy the one species that threatened their power. In doing so, they destroyed the Union itself. Keth Morin stood silently through the accusations. He did not defend himself. There was nothing to say. He had believed he was protecting civilization. He had been protecting only his own privilege. The verdict came swiftly. Removal from office. Permanent exile to a monastery world where he would spend his remaining years in contemplation. A fitting punishment, some said. He had sentenced humanity to exile. Now he would experience it himself. As guards led him from the chamber, Keth Morin paused. I thought I was saving the galaxy, he said to no one in particular. I thought order required control. I was wrong. No one responded. He was taken away. In the aftermath, the remaining Union leadership faced a choice. They could try to rebuild, to reassert control over species that had tasted freedom, or they could accept that the old ways were finished. President Okonkwo addressed them via transmission from Earth. She had aged in the 7 years since the exile, her hair now completely gray, but her eyes remained sharp. The human cooperative invites all remaining Union species to join us, she said. Not as subjects, not as conquered peoples, as partners. We ask only that you accept one principle. No species rules another. Beyond that, you are free to govern yourselves as you see fit. Why would you offer us mercy? Demanded Arbiter Kethvalis, one of the few triumvirate representatives still present. We tried to destroy you. We exiled you. We sent fleets to burn your worlds. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. And we could have responded in kind. We had the power. Some of my people wanted revenge, but revenge would have made us no better than you. It would have proven that power always corrupts, that the strong always abuse the weak. She leaned forward. We chose a different path, not because we are saints. We have done terrible things in our history. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. We know what it means to be the villain. Then why? Because we learned. Slowly, painfully, over thousands of years of mistakes. We learned that building is harder than destroying, but more satisfying. We learned that enemies can become friends if you give them a chance. We learned that the measure of strength is not what you can take, but what you can give. The chamber fell silent. You have a choice, Okonkwo continued. You can reject our offer and try to rebuild the Union on the old foundations. But those foundations were rotted. They depended on control, on fear, on keeping species ignorant of alternatives. Those days are over. The galaxy has seen something different now. They will not forget. She paused. Or you can join us. Bring your wisdom, your knowledge, your perspectives. Help us build something better than either of us could create alone. Not a human empire. Not a human-dominated galaxy. A partnership of equals, working together because they choose to. The vote that followed was not unanimous. Some species refused to accept terms from those they had wronged. Pride ran deep in ancient civilizations. But the Velith, the oldest species in the galaxy, founders of the original Union, voted yes. Their representative, an elderly scholar named Keth Voss, explained their reasoning. We built the Union 8,000 years ago because we feared chaos. We believed that only strict control could prevent the galaxy from destroying itself. For millennia, we thought we were right. He looked around the diminished assembly. We were not right. We were afraid, and fear is a poor foundation for civilization. The humans have shown us another way. Imperfect, chaotic, sometimes frustrating, but alive, growing, hopeful. Within months, the remaining Union species had joined the cooperative. The transition was not smooth. Thousands of years of hierarchy could not be erased overnight. There were conflicts, misunderstandings, and failures. But there was also something new. Species that had been enemies for generations began talking. Problems that had seemed impossible were solved through cooperation. The galaxy did not become paradise. It became something more valuable, a place where beings could try to make things better. 10 years after the exile, the Great Chamber on Harmony Prime reopened, not as the seat of Union power, but as a museum. The gallery where 800 species had voted to exile humanity now displayed the history of that decision and its consequences. A young being species deliberately unspecified in the records walked through the exhibits with her class. Their teacher was an elderly human named Marcus Chen, one of the first generation born after the exile. This is the podium where Ambassador Vasquez stood, he explained, gesturing at a raised platform surrounded by protective glass. She was told that humanity was being expelled from galactic civilization. She smiled and thanked them for clarifying her position. The young student studied the podium. Why did she smile? Was she not sad? She was many things, Chen replied. Sad, yes, but also relieved. The Union had made clear that they would never accept humanity no matter what we did. That freed us to stop trying to please them and start building something of our own. They moved to another exhibit showing the Prometheus Project. Images of human scientists working without restrictions, developing technologies the Union had forbidden. Were you angry? The student asked. At the species who voted against you? Chen considered the question carefully. Some of us were. Anger is natural when you feel wronged. But anger is also exhausting. It takes energy to hate. We decided to spend that energy on creation instead of destruction. They reached the final exhibit, a holographic display showing the galaxy as it existed now. Hundreds of species connected by trade and communication and shared purpose. Not a perfect civilization, but a living one. The inscription on Ambassador Vasquez's monument says the galaxy voted to exile Earth. The student read, "And humanity chose to forgive them. Why did you forgive?" Chen smiled. The same smile that had been passed down through generations of humans who remembered the exile and what came after. Because forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about yourself. Holding on to anger poisons you from the inside. We wanted to be free, truly free, and that meant letting go of the desire for revenge. He looked at his mixed class of human and alien students, all learning together, all building a future their grandparents could never have imagined. The Union thought they were exiling us from civilization. What they actually did was free us to create a new one where we could choose who we wanted to be instead of being told who we had to be. The class moved on to other exhibits. But the young student lingered at the monument. She read the inscription again. Here, 847 species voted to exile humanity. Here, humanity chose to forgive them. In the gallery's main hall, another visitor stood alone. Yelen Vasquez, now 93 years old, had returned to the place where her world had changed. She was accompanied by her granddaughter Elena and by the grandchild of Admiral Keth Soren. The two families had been close for years, their fates intertwined by choices made long ago. A reporter approached, one of many who wanted to interview the legendary ambassador on the 10th anniversary of the exile. Ambassador Vasquez, what do you think humanity's legacy will be? Yelen considered the question. She had been asked it many times over the years. Each time, her answer was slightly different. They tried to erase us from history, she finally said. So we wrote a new one. They said we did not belong in their galaxy. So we built a galaxy where everyone belongs. They voted to exile Earth. She smiled, that famous smile that had confused the Union Assembly a decade ago. We voted to save everyone. The reporter thanked her and moved on. Elena Vasquez and young Keth Soren helped the elderly ambassador to a bench where she could rest. Grandmother, Elena said quietly, do you ever regret it? Not fighting back? Not making them pay for what they did? Yelen took her granddaughter's hand. Every choice has costs. If we had chosen revenge, we might have won faster. But we would have become what they accused us of being. We would have built an empire instead of a community. Our victory would have been hollow. She looked at the young Velith beside her granddaughter, the grandchild of her enemy, now practically family. This is what victory looks like, she said. Not conquered peoples, not burning worlds, but children playing together who would have been enemies. Families formed across species lines, a galaxy that is better than it was, not because we forced it to be better, but because we showed it something worth wanting. Outside the museum, the stars still burned. The galaxy was still vast and often cruel. There were still conflicts, still injustices, still species who refused cooperation. The universe had not become perfect, but something fundamental had shifted. The old rules, the ones that said power meant domination, that strength meant control, that civilization required hierarchy, had been burned. In their place, something new grew, something human, not because humans were special or superior, but because they had made a choice. When given the power to destroy their enemies, they chose to forgive them. When offered the chance for revenge, they chose to build instead. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, and humanity had voted to save everyone. It was, many species would later agree, the most human thing they had ever done. The museum closed for the evening. Ambassador Vasquez was helped to her transport, which would take her back to Earth for the anniversary celebrations. She was tired. She was always tired these days, but satisfied. She had lived to see her smile become reality. The exile that was supposed to destroy humanity had freed them instead. The rules that were supposed to contain them had been burned. And from the ashes, something beautiful had grown. Something that would last. Something worth the price. As her transport rose into the sky, Yelen Vasquez looked down at the station where her fate had been decided. Then she looked up at the stars, where that fate had been rewritten. Not bad, she whispered to no one in particular. Not bad at all, the stars agreed in their silent way. They had seen civilizations rise and fall for billions of years. They had watched species destroy themselves and each other in endless cycles of violence. This was different. This was new. This was hope. And that, more than technology or weapons or power, was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Hope. The stars kept watching. They would keep watching for billions of years more. But now, for the first time, they had something worth watching. A galaxy learning to be better, one choice at a time.